first of all, I'm Denis Gagne. This is Falco Mensch from Camunda. The first thing is that this is not really a presentation from me. This is a presentation from the group. BPMN MIWG is a group of vendors and users and academia cooperating to improve the interchange of BPMN. And so our purpose is to support, facilitate, and promote the interchange of BPMN models. So this group is supported by OMG, but is not part of the official OMG working. So that means that any vendor, any end user, any academic organization can participate in the BPMN MIWG without being an OMG member. So there's no requirement of you being an OMG member to participate. So we're looking to facilitate and demonstrate the interchange to resolve some of the vendors' misinterpretation of the specification. Obviously, if you're dealing with 600 or 800 pages of specification, there's going to be misinterpretation somewhere. Plus, there's I think 1 or 2 contradictions in the spec somewhere. We try to identify what breaks the model interchange and repair that, and establish some capability through demonstration, guidelines, and validation tools. So basically, it's, the principle of it is about transparency, inclusion, collaboration, and openness of all the participating members. And our outputs are test cases, feature matrix that shows the coverage of the test cases, some guidelines, and we also have some automation. Excuse me. We also have some automations going on for carrying out the tests. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a model. I would have shown you the model in my PowerPoint. We're going to create a model, a BPMN model, and it's a 5-pool type of collaboration model. And we're going to create it with, we're going to get 12 different tools involved at least, and we may have 13 or 14 by the end of this. So what we have now is we have different vendors participating. We have Antonio that's sitting on the side there doing some modeling for us. We have Aurélien sitting just there. We have, I think this is you, Falco, isn't it?
Yeah, it could be me.
François is in Paris doing some modeling with W4. Gero is here with Signavio. And this would be, oh, this is Lloyd in Reston. And we have Tim is here, and is going to be doing some work. And Zbigniew is in Germany, I believe. Are you in Germany?
Poland,
yes,
I guess.
Poland. Oh, okay, there you go, Poland. And I'm here. So we're spread all around. So what we're going to do is we're going to basically collaboratively create this process on different tools and then assemble the pieces as we go along to get the final process going. So if you guys are all ready, we can get going. So the first work to be done is being done by Lloyd, and Lloyd is using IBM BlueWorks Live to start one of the pool. And then in parallel with that, we'll have Tim, and Tim is going to be working with activity and doing also some initial modeling in activity for the second pool. And we're going to have Falco beside me, who's doing some modeling with the Camunda tool. So I'm going to try to bridge around the different people. So we see Lloyd there entering some different pieces of that first pool. And I guess I can get François going as well on W4. François, you can get going as well in parallel. So Tim is working in activity here, doing the basic work, and Falco into the Camunda tool. So everybody is creating portion of a pool of information. They're going to pass it on. So we're using Dropbox as a central repository to exchange the work in progress and retrieve it so we can carry on. So we're looking at Falco working. We can also look at Francois doing some work in the W4 tool. Lloyd is creating his first pool work there. And I guess he's actually done now and is actually going to go and drop his portion of the work into the Dropbox. Tim is working in the activity tool, doing his portion of the modeling. Falco is continuing. I'm hoping I'm not confusing you guys too much. So we have 4 different tools that are working in parallel doing things and contributing that work centrally. So Francois in W4. Lloyd is done. So Lloyd, if you can go back to your, oh, okay, he switched out. So Lloyd is done with his work, contributed it there. Tim is doing his work in Activity Modeler. So this is much more of a geek presentation because the neat thing is the Hangout thing that we're all working in parallel and not the BPMN stuff. But so Falco is done with his work. So Falco is done with his work here. So he's going to contribute that to the central Dropbox that we're using. Francois is still working there. And Tim is still working. He's actually doing some saving of this material. So we have pretty much now the first round. Francois is saving his work. Tim is completing his save to the Dropbox. Falco is done. And Lloyd is also done in Reston. So the next step that's going to happen is that Aurélien from Bonitasoft, sitting just there, is going to pick up the work that was done from Lloyd in Reston and is going to augment this model. So Aurélien here is going to go pick up the work from Lloyd and augment it. And then Antonio from ITP Commerce, Antonio is just standing down there, is picking up the work from Tim in Activity. So let me switch to Antonio. So Antonio with the ITP Commerce tool is augmenting the work from Tim in Activity. And Garo is working on augmenting the work from Falco and Camunda and doing some augmentation using the Signavio tool here. So in the second round, we're kind of augmenting all the initial models that were done. So we can see Garo working here. Aurélien seems to be done with his work here. No, he's still doing some work in Bonitasoft. And Antonio is still doing some work. I guess he's going to save some of his work. We can see Aurélien progressing and Garo progressing. So Garo seems to be done as he's saving his files to the Dropbox. Aurélien is still doing some work. And you can see the Dropbox notices of people dropping their files as we're progressing along. Antonio. Aurélien doing some work there. So the next step that's going to happen, so we now have pretty much everybody completed their work. Antonio, are you completed? Yes? Okay, good. So everybody's pretty much completed. So as a next step now, we're going to have that Zbigniew is going to, from BOC with the Adonis tool, is going to assemble basically the work that was done in the first few pools from Activity, ITP Commerce, and Bonitasoft and BlueWorks Live, and going to integrate that and augment that into one of the models. So Zbigniew, you can start with your work there. If you can share your screen, Zbigniew. And Tim, on his side, is going to now use the YoCam open source BPMN modeler and assemble the work that was done by Camunda and Signavio by Falco and Guerro and Francois from W4, and assemble these two lower pools together. So we're going to have now two assembled parts. So we can see Zbigniew working into the Adonis tool, and Tim working into the YoCam tool. So Tim is done with YoCam, I believe? Not quite. So basically what you're seeing now, in fact, is different tools modeling different portion, interchanging BPMN type file, picking up that BPMN type file, importing it, expanding on it, and re-exporting that into BPMN using Dropbox as the central real-time registry to do these exchanges. And we can see Tim is assembling the two different pools that were created and putting some message flow in between them. And Zbigniew is adding the customer pool at the top and adding the message flow between the two tools. So what we're showing you is that we've reached a point within the community of the BPMN MIWG where we can actually quite freely interchange BPMN diagram of processes and of collaborations, covering a good. So Tim is done with his work. So that leaves Zbigniew doing still a bit of work. So Zbigniew is just in the process of saving his work, I guess. So the next step is that Simon in Reston and DC is going to assemble the assembly that was done by Adonis and the assembly that was done in YoCam, and assemble them together into the Trisotech Visio modeler. So let me switch to Simon. So we can see the first assembly that was done. So that would be the YoCam assembly. And Simon's going to go pull the... Jim, can you mute yourself?
So what's being interchanged? XML, BPMN XML?
Yeah, it's BPMN XML file format. Purely.
You can see here in the Dropbox folder all the files that have been created during the entire demo now. And I guess it's already hard for the last guys inside the demo to pick the right files in all that mess.
Are the tools doing the assembly randomly chosen, or are they tools that are better at it than some of the others?
it was, generally speaking, randomly chosen. And when we had some limitation of the tool, it wasn't necessarily interchange limitation of the tool, but the way the tool works. For example, some tools are more orchestration oriented and therefore can only model one pool. Then we move those to the beginning of the sequence here, so that if a tool is uniquely fashioned to execution, then we did that. But there was no really pick and choose of the interchange. So Simon is still working on opening. Okay. Zbigniew, did you commit your file? Oh, he's doing that now, I guess. So Zbigniew was not done. So I guess he is done now. Can you nod if you're done, Zbigniew? Okay. Well, so Simon, it should show up soon. Zbigniew is done now. So Zbigniew, we were still missing your file. Did you put it in the Dropbox? There. There we go. It just showed up. Okay.
Yeah, we even played around with a couple of file sharing tools until we found one that was fast enough for our purposes.
Yeah, because we tried different other file sharing environment, but the latency was too long for replication so that we could do something like this that is going on in the live context. So basically what this shows is that already, with quite a large span of different vendors, we're meeting the first step of interchange by being able to interchange BPMN models quite transparently into the different tools. So you can see Simon is just taking the two files, copy-pasting them into one canvas, and now is going to assemble these two portion of work by adding some message flow between the layers. So we can see at the top there was the assembly that was done by Denis, which is work from IBM BlueWorks Live, Bonita Soft, Activity, and ITP Commerce. And Simon is going to assemble this and save it to have a final version that connects. So right now we have a series of test cases that are available that covers not in a direct fashion, but basically the descriptive and analytical classes. So we have specific test cases that test coverage of these classes, and we also have different test cases that cover different aspects of layout, positioning, and all kinds of visual aspects to the model. So those are available, and we also have automated tests that will test and do some findings in the file, because findings in the files are not necessarily issues at this point, so we may find differences in files that are quite valid from a semantical point of view, but are syntactically different. So that's the challenge of the automation in there, is to make sure that we can actually identify the findings and then resolve whether it's an issue or not within the different tools. And we report all this centrally, plus the automation subgroup that is led by Falco, and he'll present the results at the end, also has now the ability to provide all this suite as an external test suite that you can integrate. So tool vendor can actually integrate this test suite into their own testing. And some of the vendors are actually doing that now, so that whenever they do modification to their tools or improve their tool, they can use that automated test suite to do some regression testing on what they've done. So I guess Simon just saved the file.
Yes, here it is.
So the file's been added. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to share my screen. And let me do full screen, which is probably the best way. And I'm going to go into the BPMN web modeler, which is a Trisotech tool, and go and do an import. So I'm going to go in Dropbox, BPMN MIWG, demo, and hopefully there's a BPMN file that says final there. Doesn't seem to have completely replicated. Yeah.
No, here is it.
Yeah, but it should have a BPMN extension, which it doesn't. So it probably didn't replicate yet. Simon, can you confirm that you actually exported a BPMN file to?
It's a BPMN file. It just doesn't have the extension.
Okay, let me try it.
Just open it.
Oh, you see, it just synchronized.
Oh, okay, maybe the synchronization was not finished.
Yeah. So we'll see how my laptop reacts to that. Doesn't seem to like it. Let me cancel this and do it again. Yeah, now it's a BPMN file. It was a partial file there for a while. So there we go. So now I have the overall result of this work that was iteratively created, and then so I'm going to show that all the logic is actually in there of that process, and I can work through that process logic.
Denis, can you double check that you share your
cannot?
screen?
Okay. Well, I did share my screen. Let me share again.
Maybe just the tool.
Okay.
Yep, that's better now.
Okay,
Thanks.
so I'm just walking through the logic of the process here and escalating. So this is a kind of a support type of process model with different level of escalation. And so here I'm choosing to escalate this down to the different level of the process. And I have and then finally at the vendor support, we get a result back, which allow me to perk back up the answer. So this is not connected. So here's the situation. So right now we can see that in the model, in the visual and logical model, one of the message flow was not properly connected to the shape. So visually, when you're drawing, there's a lot of things that are assumed by people when they use these tools. It may look like it's connected to the shape, but if it's not completely connected to the shape, you have a breakpoint like we have now. So we cannot complete this logic because this message flow is not connected. So I could go and actually connect it, but I spend too much time on this now. So basically what you've seen is a 5-pool BPMN model created by a collection of tools. And now I'm going to go back and we're going to show Jim from Oracle. And Jim is in the room somewhere, it's right there. And he's going to import the same final file into the Oracle tool. Okay, so can you show it to us? So basically, in the Oracle environment, so we were talking with Paul before that, what happens is their view is that each pool, each realm of control is a separate file. So it created 4 separate files in this case for each of the different pools that are involved in there. I'm also going now to move to Falco, who's going to show using the Camunda share tool the import of the final version of the model, which you can see here on the screen. And you can add some comments there and share this model with a community and discuss that model with the community. Did you want to also do I/O?
Just a quick one.
Okay, so I'll switch to Francois in the meantime. Francois, are you ready, or? Okay, so I'll switch to Francois. Francois, do you want to share your screen? Okay, I'll go back to Falco in the meantime then, I guess.
Okay.
So this is the BPMN I/O open source created by Camunda, and we can see the same model open in yet another different tool, another different implementation of BPMN of the model. And I think Francois is working now into importing the same model, but right into the W4 engine that Jean-Loup just presented to us. So he's importing the model right into the engine as opposed to a modeling environment. So here you go. Now you have the same model that's been pulled right into the engine without passing through an actual modeling environment. So that pretty much completes the live interactive portion of everything. Now I'm going to pass to Falco, who's going to share with us some of the results we've achieved in the MIWG group up until now.
Right, thank you. So yeah, we're switching mics so that the internet and the people in Reston can see this part of the demo as well. You see my screen over there? Okay, yes. Good. Yeah, so we've seen that the different tools can integrate with each other quite nicely, and part of making this possible was to actually test the tools and make sure that their implementations of BPMN import and exports are correct and follow the specification. And Denis already mentioned that we have this test suite of different reference models that can be used for doing these kind of tests. And one thing we've been thinking about during the last couple of months was how we can better show and visualize the results that we are getting from these tests, and to show also like which tools are participating in this group. And the outcome of that was this little table here. Let me go that to full screen. So you can see all the tools that have been participating in the model interchange grouping for BPMN at the OMG. It's quite a selection of tools. We have 22 entries in this table, coming from about the same number of vendors as well. And well, this table, first of all, of course, gives you an overview which tools are part of it. Then the different columns show some properties of the tool and also what kind of results they provide. So the first column shows which of those are supporting BPMN version 2.0. And that's something we are really happy about, to see a broad adoption of the new version of the specification within the market. Then the next column shows whether a tool supports import of BPMN XML files. That's the first important capability. And well, we can have a look into the details of how the different tools handled an import by using this little link over here. Let me show that to you in a different window. So here we, for instance, see the results of MIWG, the open source version of it. And we can see also the test cases that we defined. So here's like a very basic test of just a couple of nodes that are put behind one another in a sequence. And we can see, of course, that the import was quite easy to do. Furthermore, we have more complex examples, adding some gateways, adding some intermediate boundary events over here. And it gets more and more complex. For instance, here is pools and lanes are coming into play. Even vertical modeling is worth a test case over here, although it's not really best practice to use. And then, as Denis mentioned, we are going more into the conformance subclasses. We have a B category of tests that, first of all, contains a test case with all the elements of the descriptive conformance subclass. And the most difficult test case that we generated or that we produced is the one for the analytic conformance subclass. Let me just open that for a second. So you can see it really contains all the elements that are part of this particular class. And using that as a test case shows you pretty good if a tool kind of supports all the things that are in there. Let me go back. So that was just one drill down into this table. So we saw like import results printed next to each other. Another important feature is, of course, to export a model. After you draw something in one tool, then you would maybe like to export it and share it with others. And the next column shows a bit of a combination of the two. So there's tools that support only import or export, and some of them do both of them. And that allows for real round tripping between different tools. Quite often we see nowadays that projects or companies want to use one tool for the business part of the modeling, and another tool is being used for the technical implementation of a process. And in these situations, you really need to be able to interchange the models back and forth, because each of the sites may do changes to the process model and they need to be interchanged. So that's the column you want to be looking for if you want to do round tripping. The next column in this table shows if the tool vendors or users of the tool actually submitted results to our working group. So we have like a process going on that people can use the reference test cases, import and export them through their tools, and then submit these results. And we'll collect them in an open repository that everybody can have a look at, and also run some tests on them. And that's what is behind this details column here. If I go into that, then I will see more like a statistical evaluation of what our current automation tools are finding in these. These results are pretty technical. It's not so easy to interpret them as with the import results, for instance, because over there you just need to compare the screenshots and you can already see what's going on. But here it's going deeper into technical details. So for instance, we can get this kind of technical analysis about a model. And that's more something we look onto inside the working group to see if a tool has some issues here and there. And then, of course, we also want to help the vendors to point out what needs to be fixed in the implementation in order to get it right. And yeah, here's another view. Maybe I can just briefly show that one. There's a comparison. I don't think we have results here. Basically compares the two different XML files with each other and also allows you to see what's the difference between a model that went through a tool round trip and the reference test case that we provided. Okay, let me go back to the table. Yeah, the next part is for shows like this one. We already did one demo at the OMG meeting in Berlin last year, where lots of tools participated as well. And of course, we want to highlight that over here, the members of our group that really are engaged and participate in these demos get an extra bonus point over here. Yeah, and then of course we have things like the license. Some of the tools are open source, and it's of course something noteworthy. And the last two columns show issues that we found during the analysis of these tools, and it shows you the open issues and as well also the closed issues. And if I drill into this now, then I can see, for instance, Yaoqiang still has a little problem with expanded call activities, so you can't really model them right now. But we can clearly point out like which test cases are affected by this, and also what kind of test procedure produced this issue. And at the same time, we can see that the same tool already fixed a lot of issues in their import that have been discovered using our test cases. And the vendor here was able to react to it and yeah, make sure that the tool works pretty good now. Okay. So yeah, that basically concludes this overview of the table. You've seen that quite a lot of tools participate already in our effort. And basically, we would like to ask you as vendors or users to also join our group and participate in this interoperability effort. And yeah, basically, as Denis said, our group is not like the standard OMG groups where you need to be an OMG member to join. Basically, anybody can do this, can join us, and help us make the model interchange a little more noteworthy. On the other hand, if you're analysts or bloggers inside the room, please talk about this stuff. We really wanted to showcase how good the tools are already working together, and we really want to see more of that. And maybe to showcase some of our next goals, we also want to look a little bit into executable modeling. So maybe in one of the next demos of our group, you may see a couple of engines working together or something like that. So we still have a lot of work to do and get this going, but just as an outlook. Okay.
I like the enthusiasm of kids. So really, this is really a call to participation to everybody around. I think this is great community work that's being done by everybody. We've achieved some very impressive stuff. I think the OMG is looking very positively into this work and using it as a reference for other standards to get organized around the standard. So I think it speaks very well to the community. And I'd like to really thank very, very much all the participants to this. Although, as I say, I'm not sure if the BPMN challenge part of it was the most challenging part, or if it was this multi-connection streaming. I'm not sure which one was the most challenging, but we're happy, and I think this turns out pretty well. So I guess we're open to questions.
Let's give them a round of applause.